privilege, but
I rescind the call.
What? You rescind the call?
Senator Holdman, are you withdrawing the call?
Yes, yes.
Senator Holdman is withdrawing the call.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Senate. A number of years ago, my wife and I took a long vacation out west, and we went to Zion National Park. I don't know if any of you have been there. Absolutely outstanding place. We stayed at the Park Lodge down in the bottom of the canyon. And we began a hike up the Virgin River. And if you hike up the Virgin River, you get to a point where the canyon becomes so small that you can reach out and touch the canyon walls with both hands. And it's about 500 or 600 feet up from the floor of the river up to the top of the canyon. The last couple nights, as I call home at night to talk to my wife, I said to her, I feel like I'm in the Narrows. No matter what I do, no matter what I propose, I cannot move these walls that are on the right and the left hand because nobody wants to give. Nobody wants to move. After several months of honest, good faith discussion, it has become apparent that Senate Bill 344 lacks the support in our Senate to advance any further. And as a result, I will not be calling the bill for further debate on the Senate floor. I am greatly, greatly disappointed. I believe we have let down a number of friends, both our LGBT friends and our far-right friends, friends in the faith community. I believe the balanced approach that was outlined in the bill would be a step forward for our state. And I respect the thoughtful and reasoned approach that my colleagues in the Senate have brought to this debate, both Republican and Democrat, but it just does not appear that the time is right for this piece of legislation. And I regret that deeply. While the legislation is not advancing in this session, the underlying issue is not going to go away. I'm hopeful that those on all sides of the debate can eventually come together and reach a compromise. If we fail to do that, there is a very real possibility that the courts will do that for us. And I don't think that is in the best interest of our state, either for the protection of our friends in the LGBT community or our friends who seek to protect religious liberty. For that reason, Madam President, I pass on Senate Bill 344. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Holdman. Senator Long, recognized for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Senate. I want to first say I appreciate the courage and the leadership of Senator Holdman. He did his very best to forge a path and find a solution that was fair to all sides. He took a beating from all sides in trying to do this. And let me say, first and foremost, how unfair that was. This is a very good man, a strong Christian, and I'm proud to serve with him. I hope you all are too. This effort was unfortunately hampered by well-organized, extreme messaging from groups representing both sides of this discussion, many of them from out of state. Neither of those sides were truly seeking a solution, and you can read some of the comments now since the word has gotten out early that this was likely to happen. And people slamming, you're not not moving something, the same group saying absolutely nothing should move unless it has 4 letters or 4 words and a comma, or take the other side of it, if you will. My way or the highway doesn't work in the legislative process. One way or no way means nothing happens. And as a result, nothing is happening today. The cold reality is, as Senator Holtman just mentioned, that if we in the legislature don't forge a solution on this issue, the courts will. And that evidence is out there. There's a roadmap showing what the courts are doing in this country today, and they are aggressively stepping in where the legislature fails to tread. And where we as a legislative body and a group can strike a balance with these two issues, protecting religious freedom while also thoughtfully extending civil rights, the courts won't worry about that. And I fear and expect that religious freedom and liberty will be the loser if the courts are the ones to decide this issue. That being said, when you look at the national landscape on this very issue, 60% of the states in this country don't extend civil rights to the LGBT community. Indiana is not one of those states. At least 40% of Hoosiers today live under a human rights ordinance drafted and passed by either their city or county councils. And those have been in place in many places for many, many years, most without any incident whatsoever, no problems. And that number is likely to grow in the future. Kokomo is already considering just such a piece of legislation, and that we could well be over 50% of the entire state under an HRO before we get back here next year. And we truly did our level best to create a bill that could find bipartisan support, but in the end we just couldn't get there this year. The votes were not there. I was on record as saying we wanted a healthy and vigorous debate in this chamber. I wish we could have. We had 27 amendments on this bill today and no consensus on where to go with this bill. And in the end, it did not have support on either side in its current iteration. Because we can't find common ground, this year is no way reflective of how our state feels about civil rights. We support civil rights in Indiana. Nor does it reflect in any way our lack of support for religious freedom. We support religious freedom in this state. It simply reflects that some issues take time, and this is one of those issues. I think our state is better for having had this discussion. I truly do. All of us, particularly on the Rules Committee who listened to that debate last week, learned something from that, I believe, from both sides. It was thoughtful, it was respectful, it was civil, it was educational, and it was good for us to hear it. And that discussion will no doubt continue into the future. I just hope that our friends in the media, and I do not take you all to task on this, but I simply hope that you will thoughtfully comment on this and not allow the pot to be stirred by those who wish ill will toward our state and the good people of this state because we weren't able to find a solution and forge a solution on this today. It's very important that we choose our words carefully, that we recognize that while this discussion isn't going any further this year, it will come back. And I hope that it's this body in the House that decides this and not the courts. That's the wrong place for this to be decided. We just can't get it done this year. I want to thank all of you for participating in this discussion. I'm proud to be a member of the Indiana Senate, proud of all of you, and proud of our media, and proud of the people of this state. We'll come back again and have this discussion, just not this year. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Long. Senator Landon. Senator Landon recognized for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Senate, Senator Holtman, Senator Long. I listened very carefully to what you had to say, and I appreciate your comments, really do. I want to compliment Senator Holtman. I think he's done a very great job in terms of how he's tried to handle this bill personally. And I want to compliment Senator Long on the way that he particularly handled the Rules Committee meeting last week. It was a very thorough discussion. It was a very civil discussion. And most of all, it was a very respectful discussion. And I think that's the bottom line about what is going on here. Why we have civil rights in our country. It all boils down to a matter of respect. A respect for all citizens, all people within the state. Now, I think people were watching what we're going to do here today. I hate to bring up bad memories, but this goes back to the actions last year with RFRA. And a question was raised. Is Indiana a state that discriminates? Is Indiana a state that protects all of its citizens or not? I was dearly hoping that we would answer those questions and answer them with a resounding yes, because I believe that the people of this state do not discriminate, and we do want to protect all of our citizens. And so, yes, I can't pretend to not be disappointed by our failure to act today. Why are we failing to do what we should do? I read the editorial of the Indianapolis Star this last Sunday, and I don't always agree with the Star, but I thought they had it right when they said it's not that complicated. We've made it more complicated than it really should be. I genuinely feel that. I don't think we've had leadership from the governor's office. Quite frankly, I feared this whole issue was in trouble when I heard the State of the State address. And I couldn't understand what the governor was instructing us to do. What I did hear him say was that he didn't know whether or not we even needed to pass this legislation. And to me, that was wholesale lack of failure of leadership on his part. But beyond the fact that I think there's no reason that we should not have acted and acted boldly this year, I think this bill was defeated by unfounded fear. We should protect all persons, L, G, B, and T. It was unfounded fear fueled by ignorance and misunderstanding. And yes, this discussion will have to continue. It will. There's too many people, stakeholders who in good faith came to us and said, we need a solution. Not just members of the LGBT community, but the members, serious, important members of our business community said, we need to act. RFRA has hurt our state. This image, this issue, this question out there that is unresolved is hurting our state. Even this morning, I heard some statistic about those communities that have passed those human rights ordinances and how they are in a position, they attract talent far better than those communities that have not. There's empirical evidence that our economy says we need to do this. I have to take issue, Senator Long and Senator Holman, with his idea that there was intractable, uncompromising on both sides of this issue. We were willing to compromise. Yes, we started out with 4 words and a comma, but we were willing to compromise. And I don't want the members of the communities out there who are saying we need to do this to think that this was our fault as a caucus. We were willing to compromise. We were willing to have protection just along the lines of housing, or just along the lines of housing and employment, and we were told transgender will not go into this bill. Now, it's true, 40% of our state is covered by human rights ordinances that have existed for a long time without any repercussion. 60% remain unprotected. So let me just say this issue is not going away, it's going to stay. For better or worse, I don't have an election this year. I'll be back next year, God willing, and the creek don't rise. And we're going to continue to fight for equal rights. There's no such thing as nearly equal rights. The people of the state of Indiana demand equal rights for all people in the state. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Lannon. Senator Long, for
That we place the Senate recess for 15 minutes.
the Senate is placed in recess for 15 minutes.